We wrap up our broadcast week every week, thanks to our friends at Local Environmental Services, with a tradition that allows you to blow off a little steam or maybe call some folks to the carpet. We can call it accountability. We can call it a reality check. It's different every single week, but it's always called Trash Talk! All right, I mentioned this from Marty in Melbourne, and I love this. A little bit of a different take on Trash Talk. He says, thoughts about the podcast and Edmonton from an expat. That's right, Marty writes in to say, I really enjoy the podcast. I just started listening in August after a friend suggested it to me. Thanks, friend. Says, I appreciate the thoughtful dialogue, the balanced perspectives, and the informed guests that you have on. He says, some context here. I was born and raised in Edmonton, spent the majority of my first 36 years of life there. But in the last 10 years, my wife and I left Edmonton, and we've been calling Melbourne, Australia home. He says, just this September, just a couple of weeks ago, I returned to Edmonton to visit family and friends for the first time in 5 years. And I thought that you and your audience may be interested to hear the perspective of somebody who still feels an affinity with Edmonton, but also has a viewpoint of not having lived there for a significant period of time. I have to say that coming back was a real shock. He says, number one, I can't believe all the cannabis shops. He says, no, weed wasn't legal when I last visited. I am 100% in favor of full legalization, and I believe that doing so was a canny move by the federal government. I was just floored at how many shops there are. There's literally a shop on every block. He says, I visited Saskatoon during my recent trip. I didn't see nearly the same amount on a per capita basis. He goes, I don't know if this is good or bad. It was more of a, like, what the hell? I just got off a 31-hour flight, and now it's surreal that I can buy weed everywhere. He says, number two, the unhoused population. I'm not sure how much of this is due to the economic downturn or maybe the UCP policies or maybe it's COVID. Maybe it's a combination of all three. But wow, says Marty. He says, I live in a city of 5 million people. There doesn't appear to be nearly the number of nor the high visibility of homelessness as what I experienced in Edmonton. What struck me was the ubiquitous nature of homelessness across neighborhoods. He says, I saw it everywhere. Downtown, Old Strathcona, Glenora, Clairview. I sincerely hope that this situation improves. It was heartbreaking to witness. And my third observation, says Marty in Melbourne, how pissed off are people in Alberta? He says, I can't quite put my finger on what they're angry about exactly. It seems to be like a lot of anger toward Justin Trudeau, a lot of anger toward the United Conservative Party, and a general feeling that Alberta's being picked on by the rest of the country. He says, now here's my 2 cents on that. The anger directed to Trudeau is understandable. Now, I'm not going to defend him. I haven't lived in Canada since he's been Prime Minister. But I can tell you that the former Australian PM during COVID, Scott Morrison, was a horrible leader and an equally shitty person. Now, I voted Conservative, I voted Liberal, and I voted NDP in the past, so I'm not beholden to any specific party. But I can say with absolute certainty that Scott Morrison makes Justin Trudeau look like a cross between Nelson Mandela and Lester B. Pearson. You can just Google his scandals, his bungles that befell Australia. There's too many for me to elaborate on. So, as bad as Trudeau may be, it could be a lot worse. And I'm not sure that the level of vitriol directed to the federal Liberals is justified. But again, I don't live in Canada. This is just an outside observation. Says Marty in Melbourne, keep up the real talk, and we'll keep tuning in. Well, thanks, Marty in Melbourne. We appreciate your observations, and we invite other audience members from around the world to do the exact same thing. You can email us about anything at any time to talk@ryanjesperson.com. As mentioned, you're not going to see our team for a bit over a week, and when we come back, we can't wait to pull the curtains open and show you our brand new studio. It's Real Talk 2.0, and we're super excited. Thanks to having you on the ride with us. Thanks for telling your friends about the show. Thanks for hitting like and subscribe. Thanks for reviewing the podcast. And like Marty's pal, whoever it was, thanks for telling everybody else you know to tune in to Real Talk. We'll see you soon.